The gist that I got from his speech was, number one, sometimes it's lonely at the top. Number two, being able to multitask doesn't always mean you're effective. Number three, we all need to understand how to get along in a bureaucracy. And four, there is a crisis in leadership in America. And we don't have thinkers, people who have a vision. Sometimes you have to turn off those devices and just spend time thinking and concentrating and figuring out yourself and your moral convictions, because in the end, sometimes we have to go back to item number one, where you are the one who has to make the tough decisions, and at those moments, all you have is yourself. During the past 10 years, I have to say, I am one that prided myself on multitasking. Whether it was emailing, I had 2 phones, I tweeted, I Facebooked, I was always walking around from place to place, not really looking up because I was too busy. These days, as I turned out, I have no staff, no scheduler, and I am trying to represent a Board of Equalization district that is 600 miles from top to bottom, from the Oregon border down to Santa Barbara. So I spend a lot of time in my car these days trying to meet people and also trying to see my husband, who lives in Oxnard, and I live in San Francisco. So at first I dreaded the 6-hour drive each week, but now I really look forward to just being in the car, shutting off those devices, and just thinking about whatever the issues are. I also like to take plane rides also because I can power down. And last weekend, Jason and I took a plane ride back from DC last weekend, and my husband, Jason, likes stupid comedies.
Thank you.
So we paid the $8 and we rented This Is the End. Has anyone seen that? This Is the End, okay. Starring James Franco, Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, Jay Baruchel, Danny McBride, Craig Robinson, and Michael Cera, all starring as themselves. So this apocalypse hits, and destruction is all around, and these evil creatures lurk and try to kill all the human beings. And there's only one thing that can save them. Love thy neighbor. They can only be saved by sacrificing themselves, thinking of others, and doing good for others. This light beam pulls them up into the air and they go to heaven. So watching this movie, I realized that the Christian values are still alive and well in Hollywood still today. So today I am proud to be a Democrat because I believe, we all believe in loving thy neighbor. Helping those in need, like those suffering from the terrible tragedy in the Philippines. We stand for many things and we stand up for things. We push the envelope like Sandra Fluck does, and trying to push that bar higher for ourselves and those who follow us. I want to thank you for choosing me to receive the Wiley Aitken Excellence in Leadership Award. I met Wiley about 6 years ago. I was part of the leadership team and came down here quite often to try to recruit candidates to run for the state assembly. Wiley is a true leader who protects consumers every day as one of California's top trial lawyers. I'm not telling you things that you don't know. And he helped build this organization over many decades as one of the strong political forces for the good. So I want to thank you, Wiley, for your leadership and for just believing and fighting for what we as Democrats believe in. I also want to thank this organization for all you do, your leadership and vigilance and hard work, for turning this purple district, city, county to blue, but we must keep our eye on the prize, the 2016 presidential election. We need to make sure that we elect someone who stands for our values and, more importantly, appoints judges who are going to be compassionate to the people that are going to come before them. We have come a long way from the presidency of JFK, who died 50 years ago this week on November 22nd. But what he said 5 decades ago still rings true. He said, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democrat answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future." I thank you, Democrats, and I thank you for this beautiful, precious award. Thank you.
And you know, he used to be the top cop in California too, so you gotta pay attention. Actually, the Richard J. O'Neill Award for Excellence in Service. When I started to write down all the things that Bill Lockyer has done, I figured that it might be easier to say the things that he hadn't done. I don't think he's been dog catcher but that's about it. He's been our Attorney General, the President of our Senate. He's currently our treasurer, and I gotta tell you, because of Bill Lockyer, because of his leadership, because of his decades of leadership, this state is a cleaner state than it would be otherwise, and this state is a better state than it would be otherwise. So please welcome Bill Lockyer, the recipient of the 2013 Richard J. O'Neill Award for Excellence in Service.
Thank you. I appreciate being one of the 3 honorees tonight. George and Fiona are extraordinary and merit your acknowledgement. I've spent basically a lifetime in public service, and at another opportunity would probably want to reflect with you about some of those events and times. Tonight, I just want to say thanks and acknowledge the fact that I'm moved by your recognition of my years of service, and that I have a lot of really good friends in the room. And I want to say to them especially, thanks. Thank you.
And actually, I'm not going to introduce George, because I'm going to introduce the widow of Howard Adler. Howard, to say he was a great man is an understatement. And Tom Umber was talking about, times would go over, and when Dick was ill, you'd see them sitting next to each other reading. Howard would be reading to Dick. Howard was a man of intellect, caring, and deep thought. And so was his wife. She is also, of course, a great woman of her own accord. Dr. Louise Adler is Professor Emeritus of Education at Fullerton State University. She's an expert in politics, in education, and in governance of education bodies. And it is indeed my grand pleasure to introduce Louise Adler.
Well, George, I want you to know that tonight was an experiment, and we succeeded. We can all go home now because we won. George got here on time. Actually, I have a few more things to say about George. But first, I want to thank you for honoring my husband and my daughter's father and our good friend. he would love tonight. So he's here in spirit. And I think his spirit lives on in George as well, because George has a similar career path. George has been around in Orange County, he said, for a long time, but that's his perspective, not mine. Because I remember when South Coast Plaza was a bean patch, okay, in Orange County. But anyway, George has been here since 1980. He came out here to work for Congressman Jerry Patterson, who's beloved by all of us, okay? And that was when he first met Howard, who he described as a mentor. George has done a million different things. He started his career working for Senator Birch Bayh in the Senate, worked for 2 members of the House of Representatives, Richard Bocher from Virginia and Jerry Patterson. Worked for State Senator Cecil Green and Ruben Ayala. Worked for California State Assemblyman Tom Umberg and Jose Solario. Was the executive director of the Orange County Democratic Party at one point. Boy, that has to be hard. And as executive director and in the local government in the city of Ontario, and for the county as a deputy airport director at John Wayne Airport, and as the director of the County Transportation Authority, and as a consultant to the Great Park, and not now. I'm sure if George was doing it, we would have the whole Great Park. And as head of public affairs for the Orange County Public Relations firm, and now as a consultant to a number of different entities, including the Anaheim Ducks hockey team, Honda Center, the Faculty Association of the Rancho Santiago Community College District, and DAFCON. He has worked closely on all public policy issues and political campaigns with people from Miguel Pulido and Larry Agron to Judge David Carter and Jordan Brandon. George is a go-to guy for campaigns. He's done it all. And believe me, I know because I've walked those precincts. He's done it. He's developed the walking plans, the get out the road plans. He's done all of that. In 1990, after seeing the local Republican Assembly candidate hire uniformed security guards to intimidate Latino voters in Santa Ana and win a very close election, George recruited our good friend Tom Umberg to run against the incumbent Republican Assemblyman and left his job in the Senate to manage the campaign. On election night, together they celebrated for the first time in history, since Orange County's incorporation in 1889, that a Democrat defeated an incumbent partisan election. An incumbent was defeated in a partisan election. Subsequently, Loretta Sanchez, go Loretta, Lou Correa and Joe Dunn did exactly the same thing, and it's a pattern we want to continue. Besides his political activities, he has also served on the board of directors of Teo San Jose, a local nonprofit in Santa Ana that helps provide job training skills for local disadvantaged youth. He's on the board of directors of the Orange County Public Affairs Association and co-chairs the Orange County chapter of the George Washington University alumni. George is one of those guys who seems to know everybody, and he has a Rolodex to prove it. And he's the go-to guy you go to when you want to get a hold of somebody or get something done. Now, that all sounds pretty good, but he's got this thing in his political career that I have to tell you about. Those of you who are sort of insiders in politics may know what sign sniping is. Yeah, you better hide, you better. That's when you rev up the troops, give them some beers, serve them the pizza, and turn them loose after dark to rip down your opponent's signs. Okay. I never did it because they didn't let the girls go, but I heard it was a lot of fun. Anyway, in the campaign when he came out to work for Jerry Patterson, Patterson was running against Art Jacobson, a local aerospace engineer whose mom loaned him $30,000 to run. So it wasn't a real hard race for Jerry. Jacobson spent all his money on signs, and one night George and John Hanna went out ripping down signs around the district. They took down all of them. And then they felt so guilty that they went and put some back up. Boy, if I'd been along, they wouldn't have put it back up. In a similar incident, he was known to wield a mean sledgehammer to take down opponent signs. In 1990, in Umberg's first campaign, the NRA put up a bunch of signs that said, "Stop Tom Umberg and Tom Hayden." George and another guy decided to make a hobby of knocking these down with the sledgehammer in the middle of the night. One night they were knocking down the signs and they were spotted by a Westminster policeman in the black and white, which they managed to evade by pulling into a dimly lit parking lot. Now, I don't know whether the next thing is the greatest strategy or the stupidest strategy, your choice. It turns out it was the Westminster Police Department. Parking lot. When they pulled in, the cops noticed the signs in the back of the truck and questioned them. But George, you know, George is a good talker. They let him go, okay? So, George, you have to pass on these techniques to the younger generation of how to do these fun things in the middle of the night and get away with it, darling. Come on up here.
Get a picture with me.
Don't take any out for me.
Three, one more.
Well, great introduction, totally outed. That story get out, I'm embarrassed. It was a misspent youth. Well, I can't think of anything more exciting than to be honored with an award that's named after Howard Adler. I've known Howard since 1980. He was definitely a mentor. He was dedicated to this party. Served as chair during that time period of 1980 when I first came out here through '84. Walked precincts. He did everything it took to help get the Democratic Party going.